Scott Schiller for Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts and Team G503 Video Series and G503TV. Say all those fast 3 times. I don't know if you guys have been suffering the same thing I've been suffering for the past week here with this daylight savings time thing that they chose to bestow upon us. In the afternoon time when you should be all kind of daylight you used to have in the summer and the springtime, and now it's getting to be that time of year where it's getting cold. Yes, it does get a little cold in Charleston, South Carolina. I made a post the other day someplace where I was 50, and I brought out the hat and I brought out the work jacket because to me it gets cold here, and I like to keep warm in the garage. Besides that, I think it's cool. If you've been following along with the series, the last video I posted on YouTube was when I actually finished the tub for the Team G503 1943 Willys MB, and that was a monumental event. Now we get to the fun part. Right? It's the fun part for me. I think a lot of you feel the same way. We get to bolt on all those little parts that we took off, and we sandblasted, and we primed, and we painted, and we let them cure in a rack, and then we wrapped them all up and put them in a box and labeled box. And now it's getting close to Christmas, so it's almost like Christmas time of your birthday when you go, oh man, I remember when I did that. It's just pretty cool. The videos probably are not going to be the most exciting things that I've done, but I'm going to go systematically through all what I will call the bolt-ons or the accessories for the tub. And I want to specifically stick to it's very basic mechanics. It's not difficult to do. There are some areas where you will have some trouble if you use reproduction parts. They're not exactly the same as the originals, but they will fit. I'm going to focus mostly on what fasteners I found in the TM9 or the Master Parts Manual, and I'll show you a picture of that at the end of the video. I picked mine up on eBay, and literally every fastener in there is listed for your Jeep. Here's the thing. Original bolts are fantastic. Sometimes they get corroded, they rust, or they snap. And the modern stuff is not exactly the same thickness in the head. Some of the bolts, the screws are different. Rivets are hard to find. The lengths are not the same that they used to make back in the 40s and the 50s. So you kind of got to make some modifications. But we'll discuss that as we go through. Check out the video, just some simple Footman loops in this video. And another we'll do a spare tire carry too, because that's all on the back end. I hope you enjoy it. A quick reference on the Footman loops. These are the correct World War II Footman loops. You see how girthy and fat that is, and how the base is flat, and how thick that is. These are for CJ2A and later Jeeps. And there's nothing wrong with those, but they don't go on the World War II Jeep. And that is something commonly that actually these came off the 43 project when we started. Just wanted to show you the difference there. If you see those, that is not the correct one to put on there. Not that it won't work, but look how thin that is compared to the correct World War II. And these are available reproduction from Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts, as well as the fasteners that I'll be showing you in this video. On the back side of the tub here, I'll show you the locations for the 5 Footman loops required for the straps that are on the top, the canvas top. And you see they're located here. My bag of new reproduction A-2168 Footman loops. And look how nice they are. They're fantastic. They actually came painted. And I'll reach over here on my little shelf here, and I'll pick up the package from Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts of the fasteners. The screws we use are number 1024 by 1/2 inch, and they are flathead or slotted head with the lock washer and the nut. The kit provided by Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts contains all the screws, lock washers, and nuts you will need to install all of the Footman loops onto your Jeep. I'll start right here in the corner, and I've just put 2 of the screws inside the Footman loop, and then I'll reach around the back side, and I'll install the lock washer and the nut. If you're like me, these little parts, it seems to be a little tough to get in there with your hands sometimes and get them started. So you kind of got to be patient with this because they are a little difficult, especially with the hat channel that's behind this rear panel. I'll get a couple of these installed, and I'll move the camera to the back side or the inside of the Jeep so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. There's a couple really difficult spots, but those are more towards the passenger side, and we'll get a look at those in a minute as well. I'm using a flat-headed screwdriver and a 3/8 inch wrench behind it to tighten the fasteners. I use the wrench and the screwdriver in unison because I like to clock the slots or keep them in line. I know that's not the way they would have came from the factory, but I personally just think that looks really nice. I'll show you some of the simple tools I'm using here. This is a simple box end open end 3/8 inch wrench. And then I'm using a slotted screwdriver. Now when you choose the tip, make sure it's the right size for the slot so it doesn't strip the screw. And here's a nut driver you could use as well. And then I've also got, if you really want to be fancy, I've got my cordless drill here with a magnetic 3/8 inch drive head on the end of it. Now if you're going to use the drill to install the nuts, make sure you set the clutch setting so it doesn't drive or strip the screw. It'll stop when it gets tight enough. The most difficult fasteners to get on are the Footman loop that's 2 in or 1 over from the passenger side, and I'll show you why. There's a bracket here on the inside of the tub, and the nuts are right behind that bracket. Right back in there, tucked as tight as they could be. So I kind of got slick, and I got a little offset wrench here, and I put a piece of blue tape on it and then just tape the nut inside, and then you can slide that in and just be really careful and get the screw started from the outside, and then you can tighten it down. That's just one of the little tips I can show you, because that is a difficult area to get at. Okay, I've got all 5 of the Footman loops attached to the back side of the Jeep, and I'll give those bare fasteners a little shot of primer and some of the paint out of the can to match the tub. It'll keep them from rusting. I'm going to take a look here now at these bolts, and the manual is calling for 2 of each, the 5/16 by 18 by 1.25 inch and the 5/16 by 18 by 1 1/8 inch. I've ground the markings off. These are modern bolts, and I've shortened 2 of them by 1/8 of an inch, and you'll see why when we install the spare tire carrier, and I can show you on the inside of the tub. We'll take the bracket here, and I'll insert the 2 1 1/8 inch long bolts. Those are the shorter ones. They go at the top, and I'll show you on the inside why in just a second here. But I'll just put those in there. Now you want to leave these loose before you tighten them all up. You can install your lock washers and your nuts, but don't tighten 1 bolt or 2 bolts at the time, because you may have to make a little bit of adjustment on the bottom side of the bracket, and then you're able to move the bracket around if you don't tighten those bolts fully. Just go ahead here and install the lock washer and the nut on the back side. We'll do both. And if you also have to, you could also use an alignment tool. I suggested in the beginning of the video that some of the reproductions are not quite exactly as the originals are, and it's possible to take like a punch or a bar and slide it in the bottom hole or the top hole if you need to, and you can kind of manipulate your bracket so it would fit the holes. A lot of people have difficulty with that. I'm fortunate here that this is an original bracket, and these are the original drilled holes from the factory. Now I'll insert the 2 1.25 inch length bolts on the bottom, and we'll go take a look at the inside here, and I'll just show you why they did it that way from the factory. Once you get all 4 bolts, lock washers, and nuts on, go ahead and tighten them up with a simple socket. It's a 1/2 inch socket and a 1/2 inch box end open-end wrench. Let's take a good close look at these bolts. You'll notice the ones I showed you are 1/8 of an inch shorter at the top here, and they're flush with the hat channel. As the ones on the bottom, that they're 1.25 inch, they actually penetrate the hat channel. I've primed and painted all the fasteners with Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts products, and we'll talk about that in the future. Let's go back in the shop, and I'll show you that manual. That's the book I was talking about, the Master Parts List. And I apologize, in the beginning of the video here when I did the intro, I call it the TM9. The TM9 is the actual manual for the maintenance and building of the Jeep. This is the Master Parts List. The TM-10-1186 was originally published on July 1st, 1943. I picked this up off of eBay. We don't sell them. Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts does not sell them. Picked it up off eBay. I believe I paid less than $20 for this shipped to the house. And what's nice about it is it's a shop manual. It's got the plastic binder on the outside there, and you can open it up and you can reference stuff, and then you can close it. And another nice thing is that some of these originals that I've seen online, and if they're in really good shape, they go for a lot of money. And when you're working, you get your hands cut up and you get them all dirty, and then you go through there and you get your... Oh man, I'm gonna have to paint that one over. You know what? I'm leaving it in the video. That's just funny. Stuff like that happens all the time. Someday, when we're done with this video, I have a bazillion bloopers that I'm going to put together. Y'all are going to laugh so hard. I'm leaving that in the video. That's what you get. Now I got to sand it and repaint it again. So there you go. Back to the Master Parts Manual. A lot of guys ask all the time, what bolt goes here, what bolt goes there. You can reference everything in there. Modern bolts that you can purchase at stores today are not exactly like they were back in the 40s. The head is different, especially on the bolts. It's not as fat, thickness-wise, and so the lengths on some of them, like there's some bolts in here that are called like 3/4 inch lengths. You won't find them anymore, so you kind of have to make do, or you can buy the larger one and cut it down to size. For the most part, though, you can get something out there that's close. And remember, if you're going to use reproduction bolts, grind the markings off the head. That just doesn't look good. You see little Pac-Mans and little beep beep beeps and all this silliness that they've got on there today. All right, if you'd like to follow along, we're doing the Series 1943 Willys MB. We are moving right along here. As you know, the chassis is done. I'm getting close to having what I would call the tub ready to be reinstalled. I'm going to call some of my friends and see if they'll come help me in the near future, maybe sometime during the holidays, install it back on that chassis. Till next time, my friends, keep it safe and happy Jeeping.